evening, viewers. Thank you for joining us. This is Dalsan TV English broadcast with the latest news from Somalia and beyond. My name is Yunus Deko, and these are some of our top news headlines. Somaliland leaders to meet in Djibouti as diplomats urge renewal of talks. Military aircraft helicopters provide supplies to Somali army troops in liberated Aden Yabal. And Unisom starts drugs production in Somalia, first company in 30 years. Welcome to this broadcast from Dalsan TV. The leaders of Somalia and the breakaway region of Somaliland will meet in Djibouti, where they are both attending the annual Heritage Institute conference. Their visit to Djibouti occurs at a time when diplomats have been spearheading efforts to restart talks between Somaliland and Somalia, which stalled in 2020.
President Muse Bihi has left Hargeisa for Djibouti for an official visit on Wednesday. President Muse will join other Somali leaders attending the ongoing Heritage Institute annual general meeting. According to the presidency, the head of the state will hold talks with his Djiboutian counterpart during his visit. The trip comes after he nodded to accepting talks with President Hassan Sheikh Mohamud but placed conditions for the talks to start. Somaliland said the talks should find a two-state solution and there must be an international mediation mechanism that could take responsibility of the implementation for the agreements reached by the two sides. In a statement, Somaliland presidency has made it a condition for Somalia to respect the previous agreements and should deliver them in order to gain confidence on both sides. Also, Somaliland seeks clear agenda that are central to the conflict between the two sides to be among the talks. The separate consecutive statements from the head of the state could interpret that there are possibilities for the two countries to come to the negotiating table together again in the following months. Talks between Somali and the breakaway Somaliland region were in 2020 hailed as historic, as kick-starting a political dialogue between the two to resolve their outstanding differences. Not much progress has been recorded since the talks between Mogadishu and Hargeisa began. Hassan Sheikh Mohamud extended gratitude to the Turkey and Norway governments for their efforts to revive talks between Somaliland and Somalia. Underlining his national plan, Somalia at peace with itself and the world, that includes addressing the decades-long Somaliland issue. The decade-long Somaliland and Somalia talks have been ongoing since 2012, and a series of high-level talks between the two countries have been held in Ankara, London, Djibouti, with various states and international bodies as mediators and observers. However, earlier this year, the Somaliland government officially suspended talks with Somalia. Somalia does not recognize Somaliland's breakaway status and therefore maintains it is still part of Somalia's territorial integrity and that the federal government bases in Mogadishu therefore has authority over Somaliland as well, he added. Both Somalia and Somaliland have this year marked the 62nd anniversary of the liberation of the whole of Somalia from colonizers. A former British protectorate, Somaliland, got its independence in 1960. But days later joined Somalia. In 1991, it declared independence from the rest of the country, following war with the government in Mogadishu.
Meanwhile, a partnership between Somali and Turkish pharmaceutical companies has started operations at a new manufacturing facility in Mogadishu, as Mogadishu and most African cities continue to attract more production interest. The company, the first in the country for 30 years, has a production plant at the heart of the Somali capital, Mogadishu, which is operational and is expected to generate jobs for skilled and unskilled workers. Unisom Pharmaceuticals is going to be the first Turkish drug maker to produce medicines in Somalia, as it has started manufacturing drugs already. The last pharmaceutical factory to operate in Somalia closed doors when the Somali government collapsed in 1991. Unisom Healthcare was established in January this year to manufacture different pharmaceutical dosage forms. The factory is situated about 3 kilometers away from Mogadishu's Adanad International Airport and is close to the Kilometer 4 area. All infrastructural work, including installation of all necessary equipment in the factory, is complete. The Deputy Minister for Health, Dr. Mohamed Hassan, said at the official opening ceremony on Wednesday.
شرفيها إن صدق سنة كدب دالكرنا ما أنتيتو أي كفر ميسو شركات ورشد دالك صاريسو داوين دالك جوديه سلقو سمي تا وموجيسا.
It is an honor that after 30 years since the collapse of the Central Authority, today we are officially having a company that will be producing drugs. This is an indication of efforts played by different stakeholders in developing our country.
موجسينا أما ريكورد كذا وياهي ريكورد والضمادة أرمها دبادة عربتها وأن كتر سنة هاي سيدة سعودية عربية يدولة ذكلا جيسة.
Dr. Hassan commended their dedication to the promotion of better health care and empower African people to access reliable medicine. Dr. Mustafa Mirzi, a top manager at the pharmaceutical company, said manufacturing will start soon after discussing with the Somali government, which he commended for the support.
For a good project, it's a medicine project by a joint venture between a Turkish company which have export to 17 countries, and with the Yenisom company, which will be, I think it will be the first manufacturer company, and it's a big proud of us to do something like that.
The company will be manufacturing medicinal tablets, capsules and syrups. The pharmaceutical company says it is totally committed to improving people's health and pledged to successfully develop distinctive solid oral dosage treatment for various health conditions. Yenisom Healthcare, the first locally drug-producing company, says it is dedicated to developing access to medicine by focusing on production and marketing of high-quality, affordable generic medications. Early this year, the UN independent expert on the situation of human rights in Somalia has urged the federal government of Somalia to improve healthcare services. The UN experts called on the international community to ensure access to basic social services, including drinking water, sanitation facilities, housing, healthcare education for children, especially among girls. Meanwhile, military helicopters of the Somali Army and the African Union forces have provided supplies to soldiers in Adan Yabal, which was seized from Al-Shabaab yesterday. The military is planning to advance further to villages and towns to liberate more areas in rural south-central Somalia occupied by the group. Somali troops in the recently liberated strategic town of Adan Yabal have received air supplies from helicopters which supplied essential food and non-food items as well as medicines. Government forces and allied militias in Somalia have recaptured a strategic town that Al-Shabaab armed group had controlled for 6 years. Pro-government forces entered the town of Adan Yabal in Hirshabelle, about 220 kilometers northeast of the Somali capital Mogadishu, after the Al-Qaeda affiliate fighters withdrew without resisting on Tuesday. The army and local clan militias known as Ma'wisley have retaken swaths of territory in central states of Galmudug and Hirshabelle in recent months, in an operation backed by the United States air attacks and helicopter support from African Union forces. According to local officials, the Somali National Army is seeking to expand on areas it's currently actively operational to further push Al-Shabaab. The fighters, who have been waging a bloody war against Somalia's internationally recognized federal government for 15 years, also use the town as a logistic hub. President Hassan Sheikh Mohamud accused Al-Shabaab of making off with electric pumps from the town's wells and forcing people to flee with them to be human shields. The president, who declared an all-out war against Al-Shabaab after his election in May, said the effort to rid Hirshabelle and Galmudug of the group was in its final stages with only pockets of resistance remaining.
15 sano ayay dalka joogaan dadka Soomaaliyeed 15 sano jacaylkood iyo rabitaan dadka Soomaaliyeed ay rabaan kuma ayaan joogin.
He said other regional federal member states are also set to join the war to further degrade and incapacitate the group. Forced out of the country's main urban centers around 10 years ago, Al-Shabaab remains entrenched in vast rural areas in south-central Somalia and continues to carry out deadly attacks in Mogadishu. On October 29th, 116 people in the capital were killed in 2 car bomb explosions at the Ministry of Education, and 8 civilians died in a 20-hour hotel siege on November 27th. AMISOM, a previous incarnation of AU forces in Somalia, seized Aden Yabal from the rebels in 2016 before ceding control a few months later after Ethiopian troops withdrew. The Somali government has said it has killed around 700 members of the militant group and recaptured scores of settlements as part of a month-long campaign to loosen the Al-Qaeda-linked group control over large areas of the country. The UN Refugee Agency UNHCR spokesperson has said tens of thousands of people have sought shelter in recent weeks at Kenya's Dadaab camp, forced from their homes by extremist violence in Somalia and unrelenting drought. Despite a recent drop in daily arrivals at Dadaab, an arid outpost in northeastern Kenya, adequate space in the camp is running out, according to the United Nations.
More than 80,000 people have arrived in Kenya's Dadaab refugee camps. The majority have arrived over the past 2 years, fleeing ongoing insecurity in Somalia and the unrelenting drought, the longest and most severe in decades. UNHCR is also working to assist host communities. A cholera outbreak has been affecting refugee and host communities. Over 350 cases have been identified since the end of October. Those have mainly affected children. In one area that UNHCR teams recently visited, a family was hosting up to 28 people. 8 of them had already been infected. Treatment centers need more personnel and supplies to help curb any further spread of disease.
As countries prepare to negotiate a new global agreement to protect Earth's environment, the head of the United Nations has warned that there is no time to lose. More than 1 million species, mainly insects, are now threatened with extinction, disappearing at a rate not seen in 10 million years. According to the UN Global Land Outlook 2022 assessment, 40% of the Earth's land surface are considered to be degraded,
while emptying our world of its natural gifts. Ecosystems have become playthings of profit. With our bottomless appetite for unchecked and unequal economic growth, humanity has become a weapon of mass extinction. We are treating nature like a toilet, and ultimately, we are committing suicide by proxy. Because the loss of nature and biodiversity comes with a steep human cost. A cost we measure in lost jobs, hunger, diseases, and deaths. This conference is our chance to stop this orgy of destruction, to move from discord to harmony, and to apply the ambition and action the challenge demands. We need nothing less from this meeting than a bold post-2020 global biodiversity framework. One that beats back the biodiversity apocalypse by urgently tackling its drivers: land and sea use change, overexploitation of species, climate change, pollution, and invasive non-native species. One that addresses the root.
And with that story, we come to the end of this broadcast, an English edition of news from Dalsan TV, Somalia's premier, bilingual, and most trusted television news network. Until we meet again on another broadcast, my name is Yunus Deku. Have a lovely time and enjoy the rest of your viewing. Keep it Dalsan TV for the latest news from Somalia and beyond.